Julian Rivers prided himself on three things: his gumbo, his timing, and his ability to keep both simmering just below a rolling boil. Tonight, on the Magnolia Dreams Moonlight Legends cruise, he needed every ounce of that self-control. A silver half-moon hung over the Mississippi, reflecting off the paddleboat's white rails and gleaming brass fixtures. From the dining salon came the clatter of dessert plates and the muted hum of satisfied travelers. From the upper deck drifted a velvety ribbon of tenor saxophone, fluid as the river itself. The man coaxing that sound from the legendary silver whisper sax was Benny Burgundy, a spry 78, all elbows and smile lines, and the passengers lined the railings as though witnessing a baptism. Benny had promised one set, just enough to invoke the ghosts of Storyville without tiring his lungs. Yet he had sailed into a second chorus, then a third, notes brighter than the lanterns that ringed the deck. Julian watched from the galley doorway, forearms dusted with powdered sugar from the last order of beignets. He had played opposite Benny once, back when the cartilage in his right wrist hadn't betrayed him. He still dreamed of it some nights. The roar of the crowd, the spotlight's heat, the taste of brass on his tongue. Becoming head chef aboard the Magnolia Dream was his compromise with fate. If he couldn't make music, he would feed the people who loved it. Benny wound down on a long, sighing B, drew applause and bowed. He held up the silver whisper like a Eucharist. "Gonna tuck her away and grab me a toddy," he said to Julian as he passed the galley. "Moonlight's right for second set at 11. You ought to join me with that old con you keep under your bum." Julian chuckled. "My embouche's out of shape, Benny, but I'll bring coffee. Bring gumbo and I'll play till dawn," Benny quipped. Then he disappeared down the starboard corridor toward his stateroom. 10 minutes later, an urgent clang rang through the decks. A deckhand sprinted past the galley, face pale as bone china, man overboard by the paddle wheel. By the time Julian reached the stern, passengers were clustered beneath floodlights, whispering. 2 crewmen had hauled a body onto the boarding ramp. Captain Harriet Lowe knelt, searching for a pulse. Julian's breath punched out of him. Benny's linen jacket clung to his shoulders like a drowned flag. But it wasn't the sight of the old maestro's still form that froze Julian's blood. It was the glaring absence. The silver whisper was nowhere in sight. The sheriff's boat would not rendezvous until dawn. Satellite phones were useless under a canopy of low river clouds. Captain Lowe ordered the guests to their cabins with vouchers for free champagne, promising explanations at breakfast. Meanwhile, she convened a small crisis council in the dining salon. Herself, Julian, and cruise director Shay Patel. "Even if this is an accident," she said, "losing a passenger is bad enough. Losing the sax on top of it will spark headlines from St. Louis to New Orleans." Shay rubbed his temples. "The press will eat us alive. Benny Burgundy's farewell voyage ending in tragedy, and that horn insured for $500,000. Julian paced between tables. "Benny could swim circles around me. He hiked the levee this afternoon. Falling in by chance feels wrong. Did anyone see him after the set?" Shay consulted the clipboard of cabin assignments. "Stateroom 1 and 9. He shares it with his wife, Clarice. I saw her escort him below before the crowd dispersed." "Clarice," Julian murmured. "She'll be devastated. But she's tough-managed his bookings, handled his finances." "Tough enough to drown him?" Captain Lowe asked, voice low. Julian shook his head, though doubt flickered. "Let me talk with her. People open up over warm food." "Rivers," she warned. "You're a chef, not a detective." "True. But kitchens and bandstands teach you to read rhythms. If the killer's aboard, I'll hear the wrong note," she exhaled. "Fine. I'll keep the crew discreetly searching for the sax. We can't alarm the passengers. Be careful." Clarice Burgundy sat at a window table, untouched brandy balloon before her. She wore a black cocktail dress glittering with sequins, now dulled by dried river spray. Her eyes were dry, her grip on the glass was not. Julian set down a small bowl of gumbo with 2 spoons. "Something to keep you steady." She managed a tired smile. "Benny loved your gumbo. Said the roux was as dark as his first club in Biloxi." "He loved a lot of things." Julian pulled out a chair. "Tell me about tonight." He finished the set, we walked to the cabin. He said he forgot his lucky reed on deck. I went to freshen my lipstick. 5 minutes later I heard shouts. She swallowed hard. What kind of fool luck is that? 78 years without falling off a stage, and he tumbles off a boat. Did he say anything about the sax? He was always protective of her. She shrugged. An appraiser is meeting us in New Orleans. Benny wanted to donate the Silver Whisper to the Jazz Museum. I thought we could sell it instead. Retirement doesn't pay for itself. But we never agreed. Julian studied her manicured hands. No scratches, no bruises. He noticed, however, a faint dusting of powdered sugar on her sleeve, the same confection he'd been showering around the galley. Odd. He left her with a gambo and headed below deck. The Magnolia Dreams engine room smelled of diesel, hot metal, and river silt. Beau Montgomery, the chief engineer, wiped grease from his palms as Julian approached. "Sorry, kitchen's closed," Beau called above the churn of pistons. "I'm looking for an instrument, not a meal. Anyone come down here tonight?" Beau scratched his beard, saw a shiny sax-shaped silhouette about half an hour before the commotion, figured Benny just wanted privacy to practice. Lights caught the silver. "Near the paddle housing," Beau nodded. "Dangerous spot, the water sucks you in. I hollered a warning, but whoever it was slipped away." Julian's pulse quickened. "Are those boots yours?" He pointed to a pair splattered with wet mud. "Not the usual oily grime of the engine room. Belong to the deckhand, Marcus," Beau said. "He was helping me fix the bilge earlier." Mud. Powdered sugar. A shiny silhouette. Threads perhaps, but not yet woven. Julian rose before dawn, brewed chicory coffee, and strolled onto the observation deck. A lone figure leaned on the rail. Oliver Tynes, jazz historian and memorabilia collector. He adjusted tortoiseshell glasses and greeted Julian with academic cheer. "Horrible business," Oliver said. "Benny was the last direct link to the Bechet lineage. And that sax. Sterling silver body, custom pearl inlays. It belonged in a vault." Julian eyed the strapped messenger bag at Oliver's side. "Planning to write a column?" "I had hoped to negotiate a purchase," Oliver admitted. "Clarice hinted at a sale. I offered 300 grand, my investors are passionate. Now, I suppose it's evidence. Where were you after the set?" "In my cabin, cataloguing notes. Ask anyone in the adjacent rooms. Thin walls, they heard my voice recorder running." He turned to go, and Julian spotted a smear of dark sludge on the hem of Oliver's trousers. The same faint greenish-brown that caked the riverbank where the boat had moored earlier to load provisions. Curiosity nudged him forward. At breakfast, Captain Lowe announced the tragedy in measured tones. A hush settled over the dining salon. Guests spoke in whispers, forks lingering mid-air. Morning demanded carbohydrates, so Julian served sweet potato waffles with pecan butter until the tension softened. Pascal Skipper Dufresne, a suave 30-something sax prodigy, cornered Julian near the juice station. He wore immaculate white slacks and aviator sunglasses, despite the dim room. "Terrible about Benny," he said, not sounding torn up at all. "Guess the festival in New Orleans will need a new headliner. Maybe fate has a timetable." Julian cocked an eyebrow. "You two had a rivalry." "Rivalry? Maybe in Benny's mind. The crowd loves me, but I bear no ill will." Skipper smirked. The old line knew it was my era. Julian noticed a fresh bandage across Skipper's left knuckles. Something had broken the skin. "Skipper lied, forgetting he played sax," he coughed. "Meaning my equipment trunk." The wrong note, Julian thought. At 10 a.m., the sheriff's launch finally drew alongside. Deputy Alma Hicks boarded, accompanied by the coroner. Julian watched from the galley as Benny's body was wheeled into the infirmary. Captain Lowe soon returned, face grim. "Coroner found a head wound behind Benny's ear. Dead before he hit water." "Murder," Julian whispered. "Any idea what struck him?" "Something narrow. Metal, maybe?" "The sheriff will grill the passengers." She lowered her voice. "Rivers, if you have theories, now's the time." I need the passenger manifest, a fresh batch of beignets, and half an hour. He set up shop in the lounge, silver platters of sugared pastries luring suspects under the pretext of comfort food. One by one they came. First, the deckhand Marcus confirmed the muddy boots were his. He'd left them in the engine room after slipping on shore mud during loading. He'd seen no one loitering near the paddles. Next came Lily Harper, the cruise photographer. Her camera strap left a faint abrasion on her neck. Her eyes darted like sparrows. Julian asked why she'd skipped shooting Benny's finale. She confessed she'd been in the casino room, losing at blackjack. Shay Patel verified her presence. She owed the house $5,000, 0 cents. Benny promised to loan me the stake, she said. Now I'm sunk. Julian poured chicory coffee and mulled. Oliver Tynes drifted over, drawn by pastry. He accepted a beignet with a hand still faintly stained by river sludge. Julian steered the conversation toward mud. I explored the bank during yesterday's stop, Oliver admitted. Collected wild mint for photographs. I haven't cleaned these slacks since. I'm absent-minded, not murderous. Julian let him go. Finally, Skipper arrived. Sunglasses off, eyes bloodshot. He declined pastry. I hated Benny's guts, he said flatly. He blocked my contract with Blue Note last year, kept telling the execs I lacked discipline. His jaw flexed. But I wouldn't kill for a horn. I'd earn my own legend. Julian leaned in. Your bandaged knuckles. Punched my cabin wall when I heard the news, Skipper said. Ask my roommate. Julian almost believed him. Almost. Dismissed, the passengers dispersed. Clarice remained behind, swirling cold coffee. Julian took the chair opposite. You're still wearing last night's dress, he noted. She sighed. The coroner finished with Benny's belongings. They returned these. She slid a cracked wooden reed across the table. Not his lucky one. This was in his pocket. Julian picked it up. A hairline fracture ran lengthwise, as though clamped in angry teeth. A reed would splinter if bitten forcefully, say if someone used it to keep a sax mouthpiece from scratching skin while swinging it like a club. A club. Narrow, metal, weighted by solid silver. The silver whisper itself could deliver a fatal blow. But where was it now? Clarissa's cuffs again bore faint powdered sugar that nagged Julian. Only the galley had that particular mix of sugar and lemon zest. Clarice, he asked, did you come to the kitchen last night? She hesitated. I was craving beignets. Benny was napping. I figured I'd surprise him. The hatch was ajar, but I heard voices. Skipper arguing with someone. I left. Why not tell the captain? I didn't want scandal. Tears finally breached her composure. Now look at us. Julian strode to the laundry, a cramped room humming with dryers. If a murderer wished to hide a long, distinctive case, laundry bags offered quick camouflage. He opened a canvas sack of stained tablecloths. There, beneath the damask, was the Silver Whisper's velvet-lined case. Empty. But the red lining dusted his fingers with fine white granules, powdered sugar mingled with tiny crystals of cinnamon, exactly from last night's beignet batch. Whoever stashed the case had recently handled pastries or brushed against someone who had. He heard footsteps and ducked behind a rack. Lily Harper tiptoed in, gripping her camera. She rummaged through hampers, cursing softly. Lose something? Julian asked, stepping out. She gasped. My backup SD card. I hid it here so no one would swipe my shots. Or were you looking for the sacks you helped someone hide? Her shoulders fell. I'm not a killer, Chef, but I know who is. They met with Captain Lowe and Deputy Hicks in the wheelhouse. Lily slid a memory card into a laptop. Last night I left the casino to photograph the moonlight off the paddle spray, she narrated. The screen displayed time-stamped photos, deck railings, lanterns, empty chairs, then Skipper standing over Benny near the stern hatch. The sacks hung in Skipper's grip, bell down. Benny's face twisted in pain as Skipper swung. Lily advanced the frames. Skipper shoved the body, horn and all, through the hatch that led to the maintenance catwalk. Another frame caught Oliver Tynes stepping from the shadows, gesturing frantically as though urging Skipper away. The series ended there. Deputy Hicks whistled. "That's motive and means." "Not quite," Julian said. "Skipper hit Benny, yes, but notice the angle. He swung from Benny's left. The autopsy placed the wound behind the right ear. Someone finished the job." He faced Oliver, who had been called up for questioning. "Then Skipper fled. You checked Benny's pulse. He was alive, injured. You feared losing the chance to own the Silver Whisper, so you rolled him into the river and kept the sax. Later, when the search began, you panicked and hid it. Sugar from Clarice's sleeve rubbed off on the case when you brushed past her in the lounge explaining the residue." Oliver's mouth opened, closed. "You can't—" "I can," Deputy Hicks said, cuffing him. "Accessory at minimum. Murder, very likely." Skipper was next. He'd confessed already, cowed by the photographs. "I wanted him out of my way," he muttered. "Didn't mean to kill him." Julian looked at Clarice, who had arrived in time to hear the confessions. Grief and relief warred in her expression. That evening, the Magnolia Dream resumed its southbound course. Sunset painted the river copper. The dining salon buzzed with tentative laughter. The pall had lifted. Captain Lowe found Julian on the bow, a borrowed tenor sax in his hands. "Ship's oddly quiet without Benny," she said. Julian thumbed the cold brass. "I can't fill his shoes, but I can honor him." He lifted the horn and let a slow, mournful blues flow across the decks. Passengers drifted out, drawn by the sound. Clarice stood in the doorway, clutching a mug of chicory coffee, tears glistening but soft. When Julian finished, the crowd kept silent, honoring the hush Benny once commanded. Then, as if released from a spell, they applauded. Julian lowered the sax. Somewhere in the roar of paddle blades and cicada song he imagined Benny chuckling, calling for gumbo and one more chorus. The Magnolia Dream steamed on through the darkening river, justice done, melodies remembered, and the gentle promise of second chances echoing in every note.